summer day here in Southern Ontario. This is the Sportsline Podcast on the CHCH and Parrot Media platforms. Always appreciate you watching or listening. I'm Bubba O'Neil. Well, on the regular, this podcast highlights the region's extraordinary athletes, coaches, executives, broadcasters. But today, we're talking about a historic national event that will be hosted in the Niagara region. With roots that date back to 1901, championship lacrosse teams from Ontario, BC, Alberta, and a host squad battle for the Canadian Junior A lacrosse title, better known as the Minto Cup. I recently read, people talk about St. Catharines and they say first class right away. Then Coatsy is usually the second name they mention. This is likely the reason why longtime St. Catharines athletics president Paul Coates is the local point person for the upcoming tournament. So, why is the city of St. Catharines a premier place to host such a prestigious event? Let's welcome Mr. Paul Coates to the Sportsline Podcast. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Bubba. I'm looking forward to today.
Oh, I'll tell you, you should be looking forward to what's happening in a couple of days and that week-long event in the St. Catharines and Niagara region. Everyone coming together for a national event, the Minto Cup. It just screams of history. But before we talk about the tournament history, I want to know a little bit about you. I know you're from Rexdale, and that was always a lacrosse, maybe one of the hubs early in the days for lacrosse. But you've come into St. Catharines and you've set a standard for that program. A little bit about your history.
Yeah, so like you mentioned, I come from Rexdale. Unfortunately, my father passed away when I was really young and didn't have a chance to play much competitive sports, but I did have a lot of buddies that played for the Rexdale Warriors, the Huntleys and the Marooks and the Pattersons and the Donnellys, and so I knew it very well. And actually, a good friend of mine, he was the president of the Ontario Lacrosse Association, which now is where the Ontario Lacrosse Hall of Fame is actually in St. Catharines. So moved down to St. Catharines when I got married many moons ago, probably 38 years ago. And both of my boys went through lacrosse there. In fact, my oldest son, Dan, still plays in the National Lacrosse League for the Rochester Nighthawks. So he's going on 14 years in the NLL, just got into it. And I will say, like a lot of volunteers, my kids were treated so well going through minor lacrosse. I said, it's time to give back. And, I've always said too, Bob, I said, I still work full time, but I said, do you want to get something done? Give it to a busy person. And so I took that ball and ran with it. I started on the board and then moved up, and I've been the president now for the St. Catharines Athletics Junior A and Junior B Lacrosse Club for 14 years.
Why 14 years? Some people just do it for a couple of years and then they move on to some other things.
My wife asked that same question, and so I would say that I would hope my tenure as president does have light at the end of the tunnel. But it's been great. This story of the Minto Cup, we were actually supposed to host it just before COVID, and it was canceled. It was going to be a test event for the Canada Summer Games, which got bumped back a year. So all of those things have kind of pushed the whole timeline of maybe Paul Coates exiting as in the forefront of lacrosse in St. Catharines. But I have met so many wonderful people like in any sport. It's been great. And you know what? I got a text from my daughter today, and I shouldn't get emotional, but she said, you've put a lot into it. Enjoy it, right? And so, you do put a lot into it. And now this is hopefully this week the fruit of our labor.
When you're a president, I would believe that, yes, obviously to be the president of an association like this, or any association, you got to love the sport, first of all. There's that, but then there's also another element of it, too. There's finances and there's relationship building. Would you consider yourself one of the better persons at doing all these things?
Yeah, I think so. I'm always one that kind of takes care of things immediate, right? And so I'm surrounded by an amazing executive who have been with me for probably a good dozen years, and they're amazing at fundraising, at finance, at promotion, nutrition, all those kind of things that are so important to make our club a success. We have, all of us are volunteers. Nobody collects an iota, of a stipend that way. We just go out there and do it as volunteers to be great in the community. And lacrosse has a long history in the Niagara region and in St. Catharines. And so I just kind of wanted to keep carrying that on, and I'm very proud to be involved with the athletics.
Fair to say that the athletics probably stand with, and I'm just going back in the history books and what my knowledge is, there may be a Peterborough as one of the premier franchises in what I would say the OLA or the OJLA right now?
Yeah, so definitely Peterborough, Orangeville who don't have as long a history, but are a tremendous organization with huge success with their Toronto Beaches, like you said, Peterborough, Kitchener-Waterloo, like all of the clubs, Six Nations, a tremendous history of lacrosse. So all of the clubs, all 11 in the OJLL, have phenomenal history. And, last night, Orangeville punched their ticket as the Ontario representative in a tremendous sixth game to be able to be there. And trust me, the Whitby Warriors, who are another great organization, were devastated because they were that close to having an opportunity to represent Ontario in the Minto Cup.
Well, I mean, and this is, I think, the dream situation for this league, this Ontario league is, and I know St. Catharines had a fine season, but this is 1-2 in the regular season. So anytime you can get 1 and 2 battling for a championship title, you got celebrations like that.
Yeah, and those guys would have been so fired up, and there are some tremendous names that are related to that Orangeville team, right? The head coach, Rusty Kruger's son, scored the winning goal. Josh Sanderson's kid, who was a standout with the Toronto Rock in the NLL, his son's on that team. They are a phenomenal organization, and I will thank either team, but I know that putting bums in seats in St. Catharines for the Minto Cup, Orangeville's going to have a lot of people there, and we're excited to have them in Niagara.
We'll get back to the teams, but I want to talk about the city first. And I think of St. Catharines, and I think of the Royal Henley that just happened. I think of the Wine Festival. I think of some baseball teams that are playing very well and extended into the new team in the Perfect Game Collegiate League. And of course you've got the Welland Jackfish, who are just top notch in the IBL. So there's a lot buzzing in this area. Where does the Minto Cup fit into this piece of pie here, and what's been turning out to be a fantastic city? How can I not forget the River Lions, the defending champions, right? And the playoffs coming up. But the Minto Cup stands on its own with these other premier events.
Yeah, and as I say, there are a huge number of lacrosse fans in Southern Ontario and in upstate New York. Obviously, the Buffalo Bandits have a huge following, right? And it just happens that our captain, Steve Priolo, is from St. Catharines, played for the Athletics. Goaltender Matt Vince, probably the greatest goaltender in this era, is the goalie for the Buffalo Bandits. We have a number of players. Tom Whitty, whose family owns a winery, speaking of wineries, plays for the Bandits, former captain in the Athletics. So we have a ton. So there are lots of people that are excited that the Minto Cup is going to take place in the Meridian Center, home of the Niagara Ice Dogs, seats 5,300 people, and our goal is to pack that place and make lots of noise, and so it's super exciting. On the flip side, like you said, boy, there are a lot of amazing events that happen. The Henley, I know many people who are involved in the organization of this, put on a tremendous show. The River Lions, interesting, the River Lions having such a success this year, Bubba, that they weren't even hosting a playoff game. It allows us to be able to put the turf on top of the ice in the Meridian Center a few days earlier. Otherwise, there was going to be an exhibition game, or pardon me, there was going to be a playoff game there Thursday night, and that got eliminated because they're going directly to the national championship.
Right. Yeah, they're getting right in. So that's a big plus for you guys.
Oh, huge.
That worked out well. I think about tournaments like this, and again, people forget this is not the Ontario. This is a national championship. So when you're hosting a national championship, there are several parameters. There's accommodations. There's food, the venues, which you talk about, like the history of it, and reminding people of the continuance of something that, like I said, started in 1901. obviously, as you said, you have great people working alongside with you for this. I'll start off with the venue, okay? The Meridian Center. Why is that a great place to host a game like this?
It's phenomenal just because of the fact that we're able to bring turf onto the floor. Interestingly, the Ice Dogs, the Niagara Ice Dogs, start their training camp on the Monday following when we finish. So the ice has actually been put in. The turf will go down on top of it. And we had that same scenario. We hosted an NLL exhibition game between Las Vegas and Buffalo in the fall to do a little test run with the turf and everything. We sold the place out. It was phenomenal. Nice. So they will come, and if you put Lacrosse, and they loved seeing all those people. So it's a great facility that way. The next largest spectator facility is at Canada Games Park, which is a facility that might be 7 years old now. For a Junior B playoff game last year, we sold it out. So we had 1,200, probably 1,400 people. So we knew that we couldn't hold it there. We were going to leave that many people on the outside. So now we're in the Meridian Center. We know that, we probably are not going to get 5,300 right out of the gate, but certainly as the tournament builds, we're going to put a lot of bums in seats, and we're very excited. So it's located downtown. The important thing, too, is we have great respect for what the business development people in St. Catharines do. We want to fill all those restaurants, all of those establishments before and after the game to bring money to the community, and that's extremely important.
Absolutely. Well said. I mean, because, the hotels are going to get well, and this is like, where's everyone going? I mean, you have a team coming in from BC, for crying out loud. How do you set up the accommodations and all this?
So we have literally had rooms blocked through the Nitsopolis group on Ontario Street that has 3 properties, and we've had those rooms blocked for over a year.
Wow.
So that the parents and the teams have an opportunity to be able to go there. Because we're in August. It's very difficult to get accommodation in Niagara at this time of year with the number of Canadians not traveling south of the border. It's really very, very difficult to get accommodations. So we had all of that in place in advance of the tournament. So all those things have taken place 6-8 months ago to coordinate all that. Same with, the restaurants. They're all aware. We have one Cully Sports Bar on St. Paul Street. They're like, can you drop off some T-shirts? We really want to make sure that all of our people are in place. And there's, the Fiddler's Poorhouse, all excited. So some of the local establishments on St. Paul Street. And the Meridian Center was built quite uniquely. Rankin Group that built it out of St. Catharines built 2 pedestrian bridges that when you exit the arena go right onto the main street, literally right onto the main street. So it's great that way. So we're really excited where that rink is located in downtown St. Kitts, and it's we're proud to show it off.
Yeah, it's going to be I think quite a show, and as I said, I think it's great as everyone sort of joins in the fun and promotes the event, promotes the city. We've been fortunate with unbelievable weather, so I think that's just great, and people aren't walking around in the rain and being all kind of upset or whatever, but this is a beautiful sunshine. That's going to really help the area. Let's get into the teams here, and you talked a little bit about Orangeville and the fact that they clinched the title and beating Whitby in 6 games in what was an unbelievable Ontario final. A little bit about their team and what you know about them.
Well, I watched some of the games. Unfortunately, I didn't see it last night, but Orangeville, they just work tremendously hard. Their work ethic is second to none, and you see that in every shift. So whether it's a defensive guy running to the bench after to make sure they get an offensive guy on the floor, or vice versa, where the old guy is pushing his butt off the floor to get the D guy out on the floor. They just have tremendous work ethic. Their general manager, Nick Rose, is the goaltender for the Toronto Rock, the Hamilton-based team. Excited to get back to what I call Cops Coliseum. It'll always be Cops Coliseum. So Nick Rose is the general manager of that team, and Nick, along with being an exceptional lacrosse player, is phenomenal at giving back to lacrosse. So I shout out to Nick Rose. I'll look forward to seeing him in Niagara very, very shortly. He along with Josh Sanderson, another Northman alumni, are helping out with a youth clinic during the course of the Minto Cup. So that's how good, but they are a tremendous team. And I'll mention one thing, Bubba. Minto Cup has the same format as the Memorial Cup. You have a host team, and then like the Memorial Cup, they've got we have one from the Western League, we have one from the Alberta League, and then also Ontario, and then plus the host team.
Well, and I'll stop you right there because I was a part of it and being part of covering a Hamilton Bulldogs Junior A team that played in the Memorial Cup in St. John. And the Sea Dogs, who were the host team that year and got knocked out in the first round of the playoffs, 33 days of being pretty fresh and getting their bodies back. The St. Catharines team, the A's, I'm not going to say they're going to win this all, but there are some advantages to hosting because, as I said, you're using that same format of the 3 champions and a host team. And sometimes the host team pulls some upsets.
It's very true. Dan Pilon, who is on our Minto committee and an exceptional volunteer, said in 25 Memorial Cups under the current format, the host team had won the most number for the simple fact that they weren't beat up. They weren't beat up. And, you know, we had our captain, Keaton Zavitz, rolling a high ankle sprain in our series against Whitby. He's actually close to 100% and ready to go again. So when you look at things like that, guys have had a chance. And trust me, I'm hoping that our head coach, Steve Toll, and his staff will motivate our players to want to come out guns a-blazing right out of the gate, seeing as they haven't played for almost 3 weeks.
Because I went and looked back at some records, and I about a month ago, St. Catharines beat Orangeville 7-5.
We actually had we were responsible for their only 2 losses this year. We won. We beat them in St. Catharines and then went up to Orangeville and beat them. Nothing against Orangeville because they had a great year and they're an exceptional team. But their 2 losses this year, their only 2 losses were against the Athletics.
Well, you talk about a full building in Meridian Center rocking. When those 2 teams hook up, that really could be something.
Yeah, we're very excited. I believe that game is on Monday night, and so it's going to be great.
Okay, and then let's talk about some teams that are out of province, and we'll start with the Calgary Raiders, who just clinched their Alberta Rocky Mountain title. A little bit about them.
Yeah, so they Andrew McBride, who's a former NLL player, he oversees that organization. Interestingly, the Edmonton Miners were probably led the league all year and were bounced in the semifinals for Alberta, which was kind of interesting because Edmonton was here in 2022 for the Minto Cup and literally made it to the final. Like in previous Mintos, Alberta wasn't as strong, but their level of junior A lacrosse has really risen. And that year in 2022 at the CAA Center in Brampton, they actually ended up going to the finals and lost a real tight game. So Alberta's a really strong organization. I don't know too much else about the Raiders, but obviously they had a really, if I'm correct, they were down 3-1 in their series.
Wow.
And came back and won it 4-3. So that's how tight it was with the Raiders being down 3-1 and won 3 games straight to punch their ticket to be here in Niagara.
Folks, the Raiders, they're hot. They're on a heater right now.
Yeah.
Now, anytime you talk lacrosse, BC, the Salmon Belt, I could go on and on. I mean, their stature in the Minto Cup has been legendary, and they have had some teams that have won multiple Minto Cups. This year, Coquitlam, the Adanacs, they will represent. Before I get to where I'm going with this, tell me a little bit about Coquitlam.
So, outstanding organization, huge fan base that way, right? They play on in their location in a suburb of Vancouver, big Adanacs, sport gold and purple on their floor. They have tremendous fans. So I know that many of those fans, not inexpensive at this time of year, but are going to be jumping on airplanes into Pearson and coming to cheer on the Adanacs. So they are a phenomenal team. They knocked off Victoria, who had a tremendous year as well. So exactly what you said. You talk lacrosse, you talk about British Columbia, and either of those teams are more than worthy of being here to represent BC for the Minto Cup.
I've seen this, and I could not believe it, but I can't remember the number, I'll be honest with you. But to the point is that there have been many years the Minto Cup has started, the BC team has been the favorite, and they can't win the thing. Do you think it's slighted towards Ontario being the favorite in the Minto Cup? Or does that just change every year?
Well, I think you look at pure population, right? We have 11 teams in Ontario.
Right.
Do the numbers that way, that many. They have less number of teams. I think there's 7 in BC. So we just have more lacrosse players here based on pure population and things like that. Nothing against their skill level coming out of BC, but we have that many more players. And then we have 30 junior B teams in Ontario. 30. So you've got 30 teams of kids that want to play at the junior A level. So we just stuffing things into that funnel where we're just spitting out that many more really quality, good lacrosse players.
I find it's interesting because I've actually read some columnists that I actually represent. I mean, I actually respect a lot, and they write about the BC Lions or the Canucks.
Yes.
But they're also into lacrosse, and there's some frustration there about the amount of Minto Cups that maybe they thought they should have won, even some series that they thought they should have won that either they've blown or that they, quote, choked. And like, they're hardcore. Like, there's some really hardcore coverage of these BC teams. I think even more so than Ontario. It's amazing to me.
Yeah, definitely. They follow their lacrosse huge there on the mainland and certainly on Vancouver Island. So it's we will look forward to them coming because we know how passionate they are. The Adnex team is coached by Kurt Malosky, who is in the Canadian Lacrosse Hall of Fame. Ironically, his son is on that team and will be like top pick when the National Lacrosse League drafts happen. So Malosky played in the National Lacrosse League for a long time, is now the coach for the Vancouver team, was the head coach in Calgary when they won the NLL championship about 4 years ago. He is a brilliant lacrosse mind, brilliant. So they are being coached by the best. So that he will come guns a-blazing, bringing that Adnex team to St. Catharines.
Are Orangeville the favorite, or is that a fair question?
Really not. Nobody is. That hasn't been mentioned yet as to who the true favorite is, right? Okay. And again, all of these teams come in potentially having played a bunch of series. So who's healthier? Like that's the big one. Who's healthy? Mm-hmm. So really, that's what it comes down to.
Well, that's why we got to play. As you say, that's why they play the game.
You
right?
got it, Bubba.
Hey, lacrosse. I mean, it's our national game, and you don't even have to talk about Minto or Founders Cup. There's just so much going on with this sport, and still, in my opinion, and I've had some history with the sport doing PR with Burlington and the old Bay Area Bengals back in the day, and before when I first started that, I knew nothing about lacrosse, and it took me 2 games to fall in love with it. It is I believe the most underrated sport in this country that I think is big, but I almost think it should be bigger. Where are we in terms of enrollment, and where's the sport stand to you? I mean, you're at it with a high level, and you've been around for a long time, and you've seen some growth and some teams come and go. Where are we with the sport?
That's a really accurate statement that I think most people who are probably as deep into it as I am wish that it was more well respected by the masses, by the media, right? Like, you look at the WNBA, the coverage it gets, and yet with our national sports networks, the National Lacrosse League, with the exception of the odd highlight goal that's an over-the-shoulder, we really don't get the coverage. But you get, exactly, you indicated, you get anybody who comes out to a game for the first time, they are blown away by the speed and skill of the game. So, they try their best and things like that. Obviously, the United States is a very large market. There are some really good markets where it's well received, but that is the challenge because field lacrosse that is played at the NCAA level is what is most well known. And now the PLL, which is run by Paul Rabel, they've got a television contract in the States, and so
NBC.
Yes, and so most people relate to field lacrosse, but you still go into Buffalo Bandits. Bandits, through their playoff run, had 19,000 people at the KeyBank Center in Buffalo. That many people showed up, and they have a monstrous following. Rochester gets about 8,000. Philadelphia has a great following that way. So many of the NLL teams do. Colorado in what was the Pepsi Center have a great following. So they do, and it's those people that come, love the game and come back, but it's selling the game to the general public. So the folks on the NLL board are doing their best to try and promote it out there, but again, probably doesn't get the respect it deserves.
Yeah, I mean, because I'll be honest, I'm sure that Jamie Dawick and his people with the Toronto Rock, they can't wait to get into that new building in Hamilton, because I thought they were doing very well at the old First Ontario Center, averaging 10, 11,000 people in there. But when you go to these games, like you're aghast, like the athletic ability, the up and down, the sort of there's a sort of mirroring of different sports. Of course, we always seem to associate lacrosse with hockey a little bit because so many great hockey players, Nieuwendyk, Oates, Gretzky to some extent, played lacrosse in the summer, played hockey in the winter. But then I look at the sport and there's a little basketball in it. There's a little soccer in it. But then you throw in the athletic abilities, the chop, chop, chop. Every once in a while, the boys want to drop the gloves, too, which I've never seen a hockey game where people don't stand up once guys are dropping the gloves. So you can talk about fighting in sports or whatever, but people love it. And I think it really is a blend of so many great things and why it is our national sport.
Yeah, 100%. And guys love it and appreciate, say, from the NLL perspective, a lot of these guys, 80% of them have full-time jobs because the revenue is not there to be able to justify just playing lacrosse. So a lot of them have full-time jobs, and then they're jumping on an airplane and going to Halifax on a Thursday night to play a game and things like that. So it's hard. And you're right, going back to Jamie Dawick, who I know very well, and I'm excited to go back into downtown Hamilton. I think people can't wait. Nothing against their move to Paramount in Mississauga while they did the renovations here in Hamilton. It's going to be great. People love it that way, and so it's good. So it's a tough sell, and I think these owners are doing the best they can. Interesting right now that there is a CBA that's going on through with the Players Association of trying to come up with a new agreement, and that's been a tough negotiation because these owners, a lot of them are not making any money, and so they're trying to justify to the players, this is kind of what we got. So I speak on it very carefully for the simple fact that I have a son that is involved in the National Lacrosse League. On the flip side, everybody wants to make sure that there's a season this year. And they're not saying there's not going to be, but we want to make sure that there's a great season and people are excited for the NLL to come back this fall.
Where are we in terms of women playing lacrosse?
It's come a long way. The Ontario Lacrosse Association just held their annual festival in Whitby, and 8 years ago, there was no female division. Now there's I think they go U7, U9, U11, right up, all the way through. Right now, I've seen through social media this week, the Canada Summer Games are in St. John's, Newfoundland, and all of the provinces are represented for box lacrosse. It's huge for NCAA.
Yes.
They just held the World Sixes Championship in China or Japan this past week. The United States beat Canada in the final just because their pure skill level from field lacrosse at the NCAA. So they are coming fast and furious, and I believe, based on balance, that the Olympics in 2028 is having field lacrosse, and I believe there's a women's division as well.
That's wonderful. Great to say. And I like that. Start young and just grow the whole program, so to speak. And I think that speaks wonders for, obviously, what we're seeing in women's sports as well, too. The growth, and it's an explosion, for crying out loud. And man, it's fun to watch, too. And I think the ladies should be playing as well, too.
Yeah, just a quick note on that. So the St. Catharines team actually won the U15 gold medal at the Ontario Lacrosse Festival and are at the highest level. And then our U15 boys won the A level. So we're going to recognize both of those teams at the Minto Cup, drag them out onto the floor, get their sticks, and have them out and introduce them to the Niagara crowd.
Nice. I like that. A great appreciation for these teams and these hardworking kids. Okay, Minto Cup. tickets? Where do I get them? How does anyone get into? I mean, obviously we've hyped this up. Games I see, and I love the attraction of games at 4 o'clock, at least during the round robin, 4 o'clock and 7:30. Where do people get tickets? How do you get involved?
Yeah, so exactly what you see on the screen there, the mintocup.com. Go on to there. There's a link there to Ticketmaster. You can get your tickets there. Obviously, the box office at Meridian Center is open, basic regular business hours to be able to walk up and get tickets. Tickets through the round robin are $12 plus fees. I think it comes out to $16.50. Less expensive than going to a movie, right? And go inside there, obviously all the amenities. You can get yourself a cold beverage if you'd like, all that type of thing. So really inexpensive. And then for the final, $16 plus fees. So it's $15 plus fees. It's super, super reasonable. We've made it that way to make sure that we put bums in seats. And like you said, starting Saturday, Sunday, Monday, games at 4 o'clock and 7:30 as part of the round robin. Unfortunately, at that point, we send the 4th place team home. On the Tuesday night, the 2-3 game will take place, the semifinal. So the teams that have finished 2nd and 3rd will play a 1 game. And the winner of that will then play a 2 out of 3 against the team that finished 1st overall in the round robin to determine our champion. So we could be finished on the Friday. The final game for the tournament would be at the very latest on Saturday, August 23rd, 4th, something like that, at the end of it. So super excited. Yeah, very easy to get tickets. Again, we've made it affordable. Parking at Meridian Center can always be a bit of a challenge, so you just kind of find spots in downtown St. Catharines and then access the pedestrian bridges to get into the venue.
Well, there's parking all over downtown, and then you said these are so many places. If you want to get a meal after, I think it just works out perfect. But you go to this format though, like you got to win, like right out of the gate.
Yes.
There's just no messing around here. There's not like we can. But if you win one, if you lose one, you got to win the next one.
You got your back's against the wall, 100%. That's right. So it obviously switches every 3 years. 1 year, so next year it's in Alberta, next year it's in BC. But obviously, jet lag's an issue for those teams coming from the West and things like that, and they just finished playing. So obviously, when it's on this side of the country, there is an advantage to the Ontario teams because they're on the proper time zone and things like that. So it's it's going to be a tough sled out there, and anybody from any province can win this tournament.
High-level lacrosse, Junior A, doesn't get any better, folks. National champion, going to be crowned. St. Catharines, the perfect place, the Meridian place, perfect place. Not a bad seat in the house. Ball coach, I think you're putting on a great show. I can't wait to see how this all works out. Good luck to your squad. I know you're kind of neutral in a sense too.
Try to be as a chair.
But you're wearing an A on your chest right now. So we'll see what happens. Thank you so much for coming in. I love your enthusiasm for the sport. Continue to do what you're doing because people really appreciate what you do. I've heard that personally from some people. You're doing a great job, and looking forward to see how this all works out.
I certainly appreciate it. Thank you for having me on, Bubba.
All right, it's been great meeting you. Hey, that's the Sportsline Podcast for the day, and if you've just seen and heard, we love talking sports. Enthusiasm. We love talking high-level sports, folks. If you do know of an athlete, team, or event to promote the Sportsline Podcast, we want to hear from you. Please hit that thumbs up, like, and subscribe button. And if you have something to say, we always appreciate your comments. For the outstanding people that make the Sportsline Podcast possible, thank you so very much. And we'll see you real soon.